On my YouTube channel, I try to answer some of the hard questions in paleontology. My most recent video was on Uberjarjubatus, but the one before that was on were dinosaurs endotherms or were they ectotherms? And this video is directly related to that. Did dinosaurs have feathers? The answer to the question, did dinosaurs have feathers, is logically very simple. What makes a dinosaur unique? As Paul Serino points out in our interview, he says that there's very little that makes dinosaurs unique. Dinosaurs are diapsids, and they belong to the group of animals called archosaurs, which includes the animals like crocodilians and birds. But what makes dinosaurs unique is that they have a perforated acetabulum, and they have erect postures. That's pretty much what makes a dinosaur unique. And birds today have perforated acetabulums, are diapsids, and have erect postures. In the sensonested hierarchies, they are literally dinosaurs. Kind of like how humans are mammals. So let's ask ourselves the question one more time. Did dinosaurs have feathers? Well, all modern dinosaurs today have feathers in the form of birds. But now I know what you mean. It's quite another question to ask. Did non-avian dinosaurs have feathers? And that's what we're going to answer today. Now the first question that is very important to ask is, have we found any non-avian dinosaurs in the fossil record with feathers? And the answer to that question is an astonishing yes.
There are probably now thousands of specimens, I'll repeat that, thousands of specimens of dinosaurs with feathers on them.
Sino-Seraptorix, Sino-Seraptorix, Caudipteryx, Utyrannus, all of these animals had a feathery integument. However, it was a bit more complicated than that, because in 1996, when they discovered Sino-Seraptorix, the feathery integument on the fossil didn't really look like true feathers. And so some said, including Alan Fiducia, that these could be, in fact, collagen fibers. So, how can we know that these are the actual feathers and not just remnants of skin from the dinosaur? How do we know that dinosaurs had feathers?
Because we find them. They're not being inferred. We're not sort of saying, oh, here's a skeleton and we think it looks as if it should have feathers, or here's a skeleton and here in another place we found some fossil feathers. Oh, we'll just put them together.
Right, we're actually finding feathers on the dinosaurs.
They're actually on the dinosaurs. The real problem is for the deniers. The deniers have to then explain. There are two explanations they can give. One is to say they're not feathers, and the other one is to say, well, they're not dinosaurs, they're birds. And that was kind of possible when the first feathers were reported in 1996. The very first ones were found in a tiny dinosaur from China called Sino-Seraptorix, a relative of Compsognathus from Germany. And so the critics, reasonably, you've got to be skeptical. The critics said, yeah, maybe they're not feathers. Maybe they're kind of shredded muscles or shredded connective tissue.
But then in 1999, Sino-Seraptorix was discovered. And Sino-Seraptorix possessed clear signs of a feather integument. Not collagen fibers, but literal feather structures, like pennaceous feathers. Microraptor also revealed the same feathery structure.
Now it's time for Quick Facts with Jonathan.
Hey everyone, you know what beta-keratin is?
No.
Well, beta-keratin is exactly what it sounds like. It's a type of keratin, just like the stuff that's in your fingernails and in your hair. Except the stuff in your fingernails and hair is called alpha-keratin. This is called beta-keratin. Beta-keratin is different than alpha-keratin, and beta-keratin is found in dinosaur feathers and regular bird feathers. And as you'll see in a moment, it's going to be critical for why we know that dinosaurs did have feathers and what they used them for. It's one question to ask, did some dinosaurs have feathers? And the answer is, at this point, is quite obviously yes. It's quite a different question to ask, why did they have feathers?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Well, I think all the specimens that we have that have good feathers on them, that people would not question as being feathers, they're all small theropods. And actually, Bacher came up with the idea way back when, why they would have feathers. He basically said that, if you're a small animal, you have a very large surface area on your body, lots of skin compared to the volume in your body. And this difference means that you're losing body heat very fast. And it's the reason why mice, for example, or moles, and really small animals, mammals, they have to eat their body weight basically every day. It's to keep the fires stoked so that they can stay warm.
This is known as the square cube law, and it puts a hard limit on how big or small a land animal can get. In this case, the smaller an animal is, the less volume it has proportional to the skin surrounding its volume or its insides. And the smaller an animal is, the quicker it loses heat. So endothermic or warm-blooded, small theropod dinosaurs needed something to conserve a lot of that body heat.
This is the most sensible sensible explanation for why the feathers probably developed in the first place.
One thing to keep in mind when talking about this topic is that there are different uses for different kinds of feathers. Not all feathers serve the same purpose. For example, the feathers that are on Microraptor are different structurally than the ones on Sino-Seraptorix. Sino-Seraptorix had feathers more like hair, and those were probably used for insulation and a couple of other things, as we'll see in a moment. Microraptor, however, had pennaceous feathers, and as we'll see also in a moment, they branched, like in today's bird feathers. Just keep that in mind when we're talking about this topic.
Could they just be for insulation? Well, when we discovered that the tail was made of ginger and white stripes that were quite regular along the length of the tail, we thought, this is not just for insulation, this could be for something else. And color patterns in birds and other animals can generally be either for display or camouflage. So we suggested display. And at the same time, another group at Yale and in China were working on Anchiornis color. And they highlighted that it had black and white patterns of feathers on the wings, it had a kind of red crest on its head, and black and white patterns on the tail. And these didn't make any sense in terms of camouflage, again, because large parts of the body were just black color. And so independently, both teams kind of suggested display. Doesn't mean that the feathers are not also for insulation, but probably what happened early in evolution was that there was selection for those individuals that could make themselves look a bit scary or a bit impressive.
But once you've got feathers, of course, feathers are a wonderful adaptation for so many things. So, for example, you can color them, and suddenly you've got a way of attracting a potential mate, or scaring off some other animal that's smaller than you, or maybe more vicious. You know, one idea that Ostrom had come up with a long time ago was that, well, if you've got long, stiff feathers behind your arms, maybe what you're doing is using them to beat down insects so you can eat the insects. I don't think most people believe that one, but it's a good explanation. Why not? One idea that I like a lot relates to the fact that the long feathers behind the arms of ornithomimosaurs are perfect for covering up their nests of eggs. And when you look at their nests of eggs are like donuts. They laid 2 eggs, turned their bodies, laid 2 more eggs, turned their bodies, laid 2 more eggs, and so on. So they're standing in one spot, just turning around. And eventually the first circle closes, then you can brood or protect those eggs. But if you put the feathers on that dinosaur, and those long feathers that you see on the arms of animals like Caudipteryx, what you realize is that those eggs in between the arms and the body are in fact now covered by the feathers.
There are so many uses for feathers on dinosaurs that this video would be way too long if I were to list all of them. But I do want to talk about one last one, and this one is probably the most important of all of them. Could some non-avian dinosaurs use their feathers for flight? The ones with pennaceous feathers. Examples of dinosaurs with pennaceous feathers would be Microraptor, Sino-Seraptorix, and Caudipteryx, otherwise pronounced as Caudipteryx. But Caudipteryx, though it had pennaceous feathers that branch just like modern bird feathers today, its arms are far too short for it to use them for flight. But Microraptor, Sino-Seraptorix, and a couple of other dinosaurs were different stories. They could probably use their feathers for flight. And the flight that they did was probably more or less gliding. But this gave rise to flight. So, if you enjoyed this video, I would ask you humbly to go ahead and click the subscribe button if you think I earned it. I want to thank Dr. Benton and Dr. Curry for coming on to this video, and I want to thank you for watching.
The very first ones were found in a tiny dinosaur from China called Sino-Seraptorix, which is a relative of Deinonychus from North America. And there it was. No, I need to repeat that. I made a mistake there.
Consugnated, right?
I'll begin. It's a consugnated.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Deinonychus.
Stupid of me.